The umpires stopped the game. Not for rain. Not for a medical emergency on the field. Not for any of the reasons that cause a baseball game to halt in the middle of competition. They stopped it because what had just happened on that field, for the third time in a single game, was so far beyond the boundaries of acceptable professional conduct that allowing play to continue for even one more moment was something the crew chief refused to do. 20 minutes. That is how long the game was suspended. 20 minutes during which the stadium held its breath, players stood in silence on both sides, and the umpiring crew deliberated over a decision that when it finally came, produced a reaction that nobody inside that building had any words for. A Mets star has been permanently banned. Francisco Lindor, the captain, the face, the emotional cornerstone of the entire New York Mets organization, has announced he is leaving the team. And the words he used to explain that decision have devastated an entire franchise in a single sentence. The opposing manager walked directly to Shohei Ohtani in full view of everyone on the field. And what Ohtani said in response has caused a stir that is still spreading across the baseball world right now. This is not a story about one bad game. This is the story of a franchise coming apart at the seams. And it happened in front of everyone. To understand the full weight of what unfolded tonight, you have to understand what the Mets entered this game carrying. According to multiple inside sources with direct knowledge of the internal situation within the New York organization, the tension that existed inside that clubhouse before the first pitch was thrown tonight was already at a level that several veteran players had privately described as unsustainable. This was not a team that had simply been losing games. This was a team that had been losing something more fundamental, the shared belief that the people around them could be trusted to do what was right when the moment demanded it. According to multiple sources, conversations had been happening behind closed doors for weeks about the direction of the organization, the decisions being made at the highest levels of management, and the growing disconnect between what the coaching staff was asking players to do and what those players believed was actually in the best interest of winning baseball. The frustration was real. The fractures were real. And according to those sources, several of the team's most respected voices had already begun to wonder privately whether the situation was recoverable. What happened tonight did not create those fractures. It simply made them visible to the entire world all at once. The first foul against Ohtani was flagged but not immediately punished. According to multiple eyewitnesses on the field, the umpiring crew issued a formal warning following the initial incident, a warning delivered with enough seriousness that everyone on the Mets side of the field understood exactly what it meant and exactly what the consequences of repeating the behavior would be. The warning was ignored. According to multiple inside sources, the second incident involving Ohtani occurred within the same inning. The deliberateness of it, the fact that it happened so quickly after a formal warning had been issued in front of the entire field, produced an immediate and visible reaction from the umpiring crew that those present described as unlike anything they had witnessed during a regular season game. The crew chief did not hesitate. He did not gather his colleagues for a lengthy discussion. He issued the most serious individual penalty available to him in that moment and made clear to both dugouts that a third incident would result in consequences that went beyond anything the umpires themselves had the authority to administer on the field. The Mets star looked at the umpire, said nothing, and walked back to his position. 2 pitches later, it happened again. The third foul against Ohtani is what stopped the game. According to multiple sources present at the stadium, the crew chief's decision to suspend play came within seconds of the third incident occurring, before the dust had settled, before players had fully processed what they had just witnessed, and before anyone in either dugout had time to react in any organized way. The suspension of play was announced over the stadium public address system in language that was formal, brief, and carried a gravity that silenced a crowd that had been loud and volatile just moments before. 20 minutes. According to those present, those 20 minutes felt longer than any rain delay anyone in that stadium had ever sat through. Because everyone inside that building understood that what was being decided in that umpiring conference was not a routine ruling. It was a verdict. And verdicts of this magnitude, ones that end careers, ones that permanently alter the landscape of a franchise, ones that make history in a sport that has been played professionally for over a century, do not arrive quickly or without the full weight of deliberation behind them. When the crew chief walked back onto the field, the stadium was completely silent. According to multiple sources, you could hear the sound of his footsteps on the infield dirt from the upper deck. He stopped at home plate. He looked toward both dugouts. And then he announced the permanent ban. The reaction was immediate and total. Players on both sides stood motionless. Coaches who had been positioned near the dugout steps did not move. The crowd, tens of thousands of people who had come to watch a baseball game, absorbed what they had just heard in a silence that lasted several seconds before the full weight of it broke through, and the noise that followed was unlike anything that stadium had produced all night. But the permanent ban was not the moment that broke the New York Mets tonight. That moment came from inside their own clubhouse. And it came from the last person anyone expected. Francisco Lindor has been the Mets for years in a way that goes beyond statistics or contract value or any of the measurable contributions that front offices use to evaluate players. He is the captain in the truest sense of the word, the player whose energy sets the temperature of the entire room, whose belief in the team's possibility lifts everyone around him, and whose presence in the lineup and in the clubhouse has been the one constant that Mets fans could point to regardless of everything else that was going wrong around them. Which is precisely why what Lindor said tonight has devastated an entire city. According to multiple inside sources with direct knowledge of Lindor's statement, he did not issue his announcement through a representative. He did not release a carefully worded message through the team's communications department. He spoke directly, emotionally, and with a raw honesty that those who heard it described as the most painful thing they had witnessed in that clubhouse all season. Lindor said he could no longer be part of what this team had become. He said that what happened on that field tonight, 3 deliberate fouls against Shohei Ohtani, a permanent ban, a 20-minute suspension that stopped a professional baseball game, was not something he was willing to attach his name to going forward. And then he said the words that will follow this franchise for a very long time. This team is beyond saving. According to multiple sources, the clubhouse was completely silent when those words left his mouth. Players who had been sitting at their lockers stopped moving. Coaches who had been in adjacent rooms came to the doorway. Nobody spoke. Nobody challenged what he said. Because in that moment, according to those present, there was not a single person in that room who could find the words to argue with him. The opposing manager's decision to approach Ohtani directly following the resumption of play was itself a moment that nobody in that stadium anticipated. According to multiple sources present on the field, the manager crossed toward Ohtani with a deliberateness that made clear this was not an impulsive gesture. This had been decided. He had something specific he needed to say, and he was going to say it regardless of how unusual the act of a manager from one team approaching a star player from the opposing team in the middle of a game might appear to everyone watching. According to those present, the manager spoke briefly. His words were not loud enough to be captured by the nearest microphones. But the expression on his face and the manner in which he delivered whatever he said communicated a seriousness and a sincerity that those watching from both dugouts recognized immediately as genuine. And then Ohtani responded. According to multiple sources with knowledge of what was said, Ohtani's response was not what the manager or anyone else on the field expected. It was not diplomatic. It was not the kind of gracious, carefully measured reply that Ohtani typically offers in uncomfortable public situations. According to those sources, what Ohtani said was direct, clear, and delivered with a quiet conviction that left the manager standing completely still for several seconds after the exchange concluded. Ohtani told him that what happened tonight was bigger than one game. That it was bigger than one player or one ban or one franchise in crisis. And that the standard to which this sport holds itself in moments like this one is the only thing that separates professional baseball from something unworthy of the name. The manager nodded once, turned, and walked back to his dugout without another word. The Mets are in ruins tonight. A permanent ban has been handed down. Lindor has said out loud what many inside that organization have been thinking for weeks. And Ohtani has spoken with a clarity and a moral authority that reminded everyone watching why he is not simply the best player in baseball, he is its conscience. The baseball world is watching. And after tonight, the New York Mets will never be the same.